Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. A particularly beautiful woman is a source of terror. As a rule, a beautiful woman is a terrible disappointment. Who looks outside, dreams; who looks inside, awakes. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams; who looks inside, awakes. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order. Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, there love is lacking. The one is the shadow of the other. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. The healthy man does not torture others; generally it is the tortured who turn into torturers. The word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances; if there is any reaction, both are transformed. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol, or morphine, or idealism. The wine of youth does not always clear with advancing years; sometimes it grows turbid. The pendulum of the mind alternates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong. When an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fate. Through pride we are ever deceiving ourselves. But deep down below the surface of the average conscience, a still, small voice says to us, something is out of tune. It all depends on how we look at things, and not how they are in themselves. Knowledge rests not upon truth alone, but upon error also. Children are educated by what the grown-up is and not by his talk. Man needs difficulties; they are necessary for health. A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. The shoe that fits one person pinches another; there is no recipe for living that suits all cases. There is no such thing as a pure introvert or extrovert; such a person would be in the lunatic asylum. Often the hands will solve a mystery that the intellect has struggled with in vain. The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown. If there is anything that we wish to change in the child, we should first examine it, and see whether it is not something that could better be changed in ourselves. Our heart glows, and secret unrest gnaws at the root of our being. Dealing with the unconscious has become a question of life for us. Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. If one does not understand a person, one tends to regard him as a fool. Show me a sane man, and I will cure him for you. Who has fully realized that history is not contained in thick books, but lives in our very blood? Follow that will and that way, which experience confirms to be your own. We should not pretend to understand the world only by the intellect. The judgment of the intellect is only part of the truth. Resistance to the organized mass can be effected only by the man who is as well organized in his individuality as the mass itself. The debt we owe to the play of imagination is incalculable. The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it. Man's task is to become conscious of the contents that press upward from the unconscious. All the works of man have their origin in creative fantasy. What right have we, then, to depreciate imagination? Masses are always breeding grounds of psychic epidemics. We deem those happy who from the experience of life have learned to bear its ills without being overcome by them. It is a fact that cannot be denied. The wickedness of others becomes our own wickedness, because it kindles something evil in our own hearts. Shrinking away from death is something unhealthy and abnormal, which robs the second half of life of its purpose. Nobody, as long as he moves about among the chaotic currents of life, is without trouble. A scream is always just that, a noise and not music. Everyone knows nowadays that people have complexes. What is not so well known, though far more important theoretically, is that complexes can have us. The Christian missionary may preach the gospel to the poor naked heathen, but the spiritual heathen, who populate Europe, have as yet heard nothing of Christianity. Without this playing with fantasy, no creative work has ever yet come to birth. The debt we owe to the play of the imagination is incalculable. Understanding does not cure evil, but it is a definite help, in as much as one can cope with the comprehensible darkness. In my case, Pilgrim's Progress consisted in my having to climb down 1,000 ladders, until I could reach out my hand to the little clod of earth that I am. A psychoneurosis must be understood, ultimately, as the suffering of a soul which has not discovered its meaning.